what they told me was that they had parents' permission to interview the child. So they also, because there's lots of rooms in here, and there's one of the rooms that we don't use for any children because it doesn't have 2 exits. And they requested, and so there's no cameras in that room. And I'd asked them, it's like, well, can I come in? And they're, no, we need to, do our investigation. But they requested a room. I remember she asked, she said, do you have a room that doesn't have cameras? I thought it was unusual that they were interviewing a 2-year-old because I talked to 2-year-olds, and I don't know what they hoped what kind of information they hoped to gain.
Danny and I met. My daughter and my son-in-law talked me into getting on the internet after I'd been divorced. And they said, why don't you try there's a Christian mingle. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do that because. And he said, my son-in-law goes, I'll help you get it set up. I saw Danny and I said hi, and I think he had tried to contact me before that, but I'd kind of given up, like, oh, this isn't for me. And so I finally responded, and we talked for the first time February 17th, and then by April, he had asked me to marry him, and by June 19th, we were married. And it was the craziest thing that's ever happened, and my kids just couldn't believe it. And we all know that testimonies are what shows others where we've come from and how far we've gone and how much God has done for us. When we started this, God's called us to help people. God's called us to take care of the kids, the widows, and such like that. And our heart was to teach kids and show the kids who they are so that they can do those things. Because, some of these people don't walk with Jesus every day, and that's just fine. But these little ones, they are the ones who are going to be our next generation. They're our legacy. As this world is getting crazier and crazier, those little ones need to know that they're safe. They need to know that what's going on in this world, they've got comfort and safety in this place. Yes, we let DHS come in so that we could help more families. That's the only reason we even got with DHS to begin with, because the lady that had been the director, she had the credentials. She said, we can help more families if we do the DHS. And we were like, okay, if we can help more kids that way, then let's do it that way, because it is hard to pay for childcare nowadays. It's expensive. And so then we decided, we'll do the DHS.
But what DHS started to do was every time they would do something like it was so disrespectful, not just to the teachers, but it was disrespectful to the parents and the community here. And I was like, that's not who we are.
Right.
These guys have been
Yeah,
our
that's
friends
great.
the whole time, so we're
Sorry,
you're fine.
but we're going to be the buffer for you.
Okay.
We're not allowing this. So,
And by the way, since you're here, I was gonna mention that if you guys want to come in anytime, you're welcome.
right, and that's
They're
that's the
not,
thing.
but you
right, right. And that's why I said, and when this all first came down, I asked Officer George. I said, "Did you ask him if you could go in and just look, just you?" He's like, "No." I was like, "Guarantee he would have let you."
Right, exactly.
So I mean, I understand until there's like stuff from a judge and everything like that, we're not getting involved, and we're not going to allow it to happen.
Thank you.
Are you attempting to run a commercial daycare but without adhering to the DHS rules?
No,
What are you trying to run then?
a church, a ministry of the church. And the church cares for people from conception, for unwed mother, carrying babies, all the way. I do funerals for elderly. So the church has a responsibility of caring for people, period. I've used this analogy. It's like, have you ever dated somebody and broke up and they wouldn't go away? That's kind of what this felt like. When we told them we didn't want anything to do with them, go away, they weren't welcome on the property anymore, just leave. They have abused that right and privilege, and we don't trust them anymore.
Ladies, I'm a British documentary maker. Would you be prepared to talk to me about this? I'm curious. Obviously not.
Thank you, appreciate it.
That was insane. So we've been to see Pastor Danny, and people, oh, they're here. People are saying, what? Danny goes flying outside. I go with him, and the police are outside, and so are two agents of the DHS, two young ladies in a white car. They're outside, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So they've brought the police with them. They've called the police because they think there's going to be like what we call in the UK a breach of the peace, trying to get in the place. But then the police are saying, do you want these people thrown off the premises because they're trespassing? So Danny has said, yeah, and of course it's enshrined in the Constitution. It's a church, so it's they're free to do the thing. So that is just nuts. I was actually there when the DHS and the police, so was Ray from the Tribune, I was actually there when the DHS and the police turned up. What on earth? Why don't they just leave him alone and let him do his thing? We'll give them a chance to tell us why. The DHS called the police to try and get into the premises, which they had no paperwork to shut it down or whatever, and then the police ended up throwing them off the premises. I've got no idea. That's insane.
I got phone calls from various levels of authority in that organization, and basically I just quit taking their calls. I was like, I told you I'm ending the relationship. Now, go away.
I'm tired of walking on eggshells. I'm tired of the scrutiny that they can bring because they don't care where these things come from. They just come in and they do their little thing, and they don't care what it hurts, who it hurts, or how it works. All they want is to come in and have their say-so over everything. And wasn't, doing things according to the way it's supposed to be. That wasn't the problem. The problem is that they have come and made it so difficult to take care of kids that, no, I don't want any of that anymore. I'm tired of that. Things have got to change in the way DHS handles their system.
It's proved such a fascinating journey with Danny and Dee and with the church that I have become personally involved. I hope I retain my impartiality as a filmmaker, but you can't help when things become as unusual as this. You can't help but get involved.
There's people out there thinking that these vicious rumors are true, and that puts us in a horrible light, and that's not what happens. That's the part that's hard.
In each room, we had a refrigerator for I don't know if they had breast milk or something like that that needed to be refrigerated, or teething rings, or it's an ice pack, so we had those kept in the rooms. And so the teachers also could keep their lunch in the rooms. For meals, we've got a kitchen that's staffed and a milk fridge and everything, and our milk's delivered every week. And it's rotated and all that kind of stuff. The kitchen person would load the milk on the cart, take it to each individual room to where it'd be handed off to a teacher. So there's two sets of eyes there that should catch anything that's not correct before it goes to a kid. So you have those checks and balances in place. Well, what was happening if you had like a child that didn't drink his milk or something, or maybe a parent picked them up before the meal was served, well, the milk was still brought down, they would put it in one of those refrigerators. So a child didn't actually get the milk served to them, but because it was in the room with out of date, it had the potential of being served to a child.
And the DHS felt that this was a major incursion and chose to investigate it. But the incident over the milk that has blown up on social media, I mean, I read the Legacy Childcare were giving the children out-of-date milk. When we actually boil this one down, it amounts to one small carton of milk that was removed from a fridge because it was out of date before it could get to a child. It seems astonishing.
And so anytime that, like on that particular incident, when that was addressed, and I found out what had happened, how it would happen, when DHS comes in and gives you their little write-up on, oh, this is what happened and what are you going to do to fix it, I removed every refrigerator out of the rooms. The milk would deliver, and sometimes it would expire before. And see, we keep meticulous records of purchases on this. And we would throw away sometimes a case of milk, which was 25 cartons of milk, because it was out of date, or it would be out of date before the following Monday. If it would expire on a Saturday, but it would be out of date on Monday, it just went to the dumpster.
And how many were in any way affected by the allegedly out-of-date single carton of milk?
Actually affected?
Yeah.
None. It was the potential of being affected, from what I understand the issue was.
There was a sort of nascent complaint that a child had been pushed over. Now, I'm not free to show that video, but I've seen that video, and from one angle it appears that a carer or teacher reaches out to prevent a child moving, and the child stumbles back. The child's a couple of years old. from the other angle, it is very apparent that the child is nowhere near the carer's hand, and the child literally steps back and falls on his backside. The DHS, understandably, took up an investigation on this, but this is where, for me, the situation turns pretty sinister. The DHS investigators came in here and questioned some of your children. Yeah.
Yes.
What was the youngest child they questioned?
I think there were 2 and 3-year-olds.
I was like, where's the parent? And then and I asked, did you get permission from the parent? And they said they did, but the parent didn't know what their rights were.
Boy, they were taken into a room by themselves.
One of the children that was interviewed was a very small child. And, you know, when you see them come out and they're in tears and they're 2 years old.
How many DHS investigators were in the room with that child?
It was the normal lady and then one other lady investigator.
2 adults in a room,
Right,
alone with an under 4-year-old child.
right.
And I felt that at that moment, a parent should have been in there or a staff member should have been in there. But I didn't know about it till after the fact. And then again, I came in and interviewed after that. But the young child was visibly upset, didn't understand what was going on.
Was it one of the rooms that you have covered with cameras?
No.
Why was that?
I was to the understanding that they didn't want cameras in there, so I guess we weren't watching them or something as they were doing this interview. That I'm not.
Is a 2-year-old capable of reading?
No, they can't read.
Is a 2-year-old, when they come in here, are they capable of making their own meals?
No.
Is a 2-year-old frequently capable of taking care of their own toilet routine?
No. That's their time to, that normal at 2-year-old, they're going through potty training and such. They can't carry on great conversations at that age. They don't talk well yet. They're learning how to say things. They're learning what those things mean. It's part of their process.
But they interviewed me over this situation, and they asked me, they said, Pastor Danny said that you saw the video with him of this incident. And I said, he said that? And they said, yeah. And I said, no, I don't believe that, because I didn't see the video and he never asked me to.
You wouldn't have one of my children in there.
When you say your children, you mean the children?
Yeah, if it was one of my kids when they were that age and stuff like that, no, I would have never let them in.
You know, for a long time, you think that they're there for you. And then over the last few months, we found out that there's been a lot of questions, a lot of things that have arisen. And felt like they started just coming at us, overreaching.
In your normal operations here, would you be concerned that a child with 2 adults who they were not familiar with, who weren't members of your staff, would you be concerned that they were in a room alone with them? I'm not suggesting any ill conduct.
Right.
But would you be concerned, would it breach your standards if they were in a room with them alone with no camera coverage and no security?
No, that would not be the normal procedure around. Yeah, you wouldn't. That's just not something I would do.
So there's just so many things that I found that just don't add up. I'm told one thing one minute, and then where's it at? I don't, but anytime we've ever, they've come at us and they said, okay, we've had a complaint about this, about whatever it may be, it's always been corrected. It's always been addressed, and we've done everything we could to do what was right. But then it just seemed like all of a sudden it just one thing after another.
I thought it was unusual that they were interviewing a 2-year-old, because I talked to 2-year-olds, And I don't know what they hope to even, what kind of information they hope to gain from a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. To me, that was unusual. I can understand interviewing an adult, yeah, because you can kind of have a conversation. But a child, I don't know what.
First off, you have limited vocabulary, a limited understanding. A child's going in there, they don't know these people. And honestly, another thing, these people were in masks. And I know some believe that they had to wear the mask for the mask mandate and all that, but we don't wear masks here. Never have. And so you've got a 2-year-old, you don't know what they're thinking about that as well. I mean, here's people they don't know. They have masks on. They're interviewing them. Like I said, didn't know until after they came out. And it really surprised me. It did.
Once again, we would appeal to the DHS to tell us, is that policy? Is it the policy of the state of Oklahoma to interrogate 2-year-olds? I think as I've said earlier, if a 2-year-old were sadly and tragically a witness to a car accident or a shooting or something similar, I think there would be an interview process with the police that would involve child psychologist, specialist, a parent, a carer, would be heavily observed on CCTV, it would be recorded, there would be safeguarding. None of those elements were in place, and the 2-year-old was questioned. I'm baffled as to why that would happen.
I feel that their overreach and their oversight, it limits us to being who we are. They tell us what we can and what we can't do. And it just it's created a lot of problems, because every time a situation arises, you know, they have to contact parents. I understand all that, but it's done a little, we've lost families over it. We've had employees, you know, that unfortunately have experienced the downside of it, just like this one young lady. I mean, she couldn't even be here. And then after weeks of all this, the next thing you know, they're saying that it's unsubstantiated. Well, this is weeks later, and she's moved on, but it already affected families. It affected what we were doing here with these families. And I think as a church that we're sovereign. We have rights as a church. I believe that.
To hear all these accusations knowing that this isn't true, it's hard. It's hard on your nerves. It's hard on thinking what you're doing is right, because there's been moments I'm like, let's just forget this. We're trying, we're losing a battle. But yet we know that taking care of babies is what we're supposed to do. But there's points of it when you're like, I'm done. I'm done of being accused of this stuff. You want to quit, but you know that the purpose is bigger than you want to quit.
And you've got to see the kids go through that.
Yeah, because, you know, these kids, they run in and they're like happy to be here. If there were bad things going on, these kids wouldn't want to be here. And these kids, we had a parent telling us yesterday that when they get out of the car, they're running up here. And she goes, if there was an issue, my kids would not be running up here. They love being here. They have always been here. So it's a matter of, we're supposed to take care of kids. I know we've been called to take care of kids, but when you've got these kind of things going on, it makes it difficult.
didn't seem like anybody was thinking about how it affected the kids. You know, it was about, I mean, if you want to make it about me and what a jerk I am or whatever, then okay. I mean, whatever. You know, but it seems like in some of these people you're talking about, in their attempt to get to me, all they've really done is hurt these families. And that bothers me, you know. I mean, I can't do anything about that. You know, when this first happened, I'm going to use the term, made deals with the parents. I would get with you and say, all right, I understand that it was being paid for, now it's not. What can you afford? But we still have to pay teachers. We still have to buy food. We still have to do all of that. A guy one time said, when your outgo exceeds your income, then your upkeep will be your downfall. So it was just a matter of balancing that out. But we do have to pay teachers. And if you would have said, well, I can afford $25 a week, so done. And we just did whatever we could do to just kind of keep it moving.
Danny felt he had no option but to exit the DHS system because they didn't believe it was good for the children. And obviously, so we've seen if we are to believe, and I have no reason to disbelieve, this story of this child being interrogated, that is not a situation in good faith that you can put children in. So it's a loss of a significant childcare facility, significant. And it's affected a lot of people's lives.
The parents are deciding who cares for their kids. The parents are deciding who takes care of their kids. The parents are deciding what to do with their children. The parents are deciding how they want their children raised. I mean, so it doesn't seem like they want anyone else's opinion on how to raise their children. And I kind of agree with that. I support that they don't need DHS or anybody else to tell them who's going to care for their children. They're their children. I mean, our hours were 6 a.m., well, at that time, 5:30 in the morning, because there was one family that needed us to be open that early, so we opened it that early. It meant that they could work without worrying about not being able to work. It meant that if they were in school, that they could do that. It just meant that they didn't have to worry about their kids. You know, we also would pick up kids at the public school. So parents would drop them off early in the morning on the way to work. We would take them to school and then pick them up after school, bring them here, and then they'd pick them up before 6 o'clock when we closed. But it just meant that they had a place where they didn't have to worry about their kids.
You know, we lost a lot of families, but we also had some that we worked with and that were able to continue. And we've done everything we can to work with them so they can continue, because we are ministry first. We are ministry first. We are providing children with an education. We're providing them with the principles for life to be able to go out and be who God called them to be and created them to be. And so, yeah, did we take a hit? You could say, yep, we did. However, we're not going to give up, and we're not going to stop there. We're going to continue doing what we do. As far as the community, I've heard, like I said, the stories, and I've heard hearsay about what people are saying, but I've also seen a lot of people step up and a lot of people support what we're doing and what's going on.
So, yeah, a substantial amount of anger, and I think that's now calmed to a situation of understanding of where Danny and the church are at. I think this is shown particularly by what happened when the police and the DHS turned up. By the time 10-15 minutes elapsed while this debate went on and the DHS were asked by the police to leave, by the time I went back inside at the church, there were perhaps 20 people had arrived. Not congregation members of the church, not friends of Danny or whatever, just townspeople who had been alerted to the fact the police and the DHS were there and were thinking, we've still got some hope with this childcare, we don't want it shut down. Townspeople had arrived to effectively blockade the place to keep the DHS out. So yeah, it has impacted the town. Matt White, I think that the mayor has said that it's a significant blow.
You have a lot of support now from the community in El Reno.
That's been a bit of a surprise to me. I told my wife when we first started this, can I call it a battle? I've been inspired by how many people have reached out who aren't part of this ministry, people from other towns. I mean, when all this first happened, a friend of ours put out a call to people about, hey, Legacy needs your help. DHS is there to shut them down. And they showed up with their, I don't know, coloring book, I guess. It wasn't even real documents, but it's the same documents they've used to intimidate other people. And we looked at it and showed the officers, like, is this legal? Is this, he goes, no. I was like, okay, so we don't have to close. They're like, no. But they're ordering it, and they're like, but we're ordering you to. It's like, you can't order us to do that. I mean, it's a false call. I think it's against the law to do something like that. I mean, it's a shame that they're being called for things like that. And, you know, God, I hate to say it like this, but to use them as puppets for their agenda is kind of what that feels like.
You have an expectation of your staff because children are in our care. And a lot of these, I've not looked on these allegations because I don't have the social media that they have, but I've heard. But these are also, some of the people I've heard is also people that he's helped. He helped when they came. He gave them a job, or he helped them with an area of something they needed for their family. I've seen him go above and beyond. And then also when it comes to their job or their position, you do have a position here, and you know, we expect you to do that. And then that's where the personality conflicts come in, and that's where he is all about making sure that we do what we're supposed to do. I mean, there's even times he's had to correct me, and I'm like, oh, you know, and it doesn't feel good, but if it's needed, it's needed. If it's necessary, it's necessary. That's what we do here. But we can also do, you know, even with him, people could go to him and say, hey, look, we're having a problem here, we're having a problem there. And he would always listen. He would always sit down. But it became, to me, a personality conflict. It really did.
Well, let's see, the last time they showed up on those two ladies that you had requested an interview with that weren't interested, they showed up on the 21st and just kind of a random, brought the police, and we never even actually talked to them. At that point, I just talked to the police officer and said, look, they've been asked to leave, they've been told they're trespassing, and we want them to leave. And the officer asked me, he said, well, did you do any paperwork last time? I said, well, no. Do we need to this time? And so he suggested that we go ahead and register a formal complaint. And what that does, they've been verbally warned once when you were here, and then now they've been written. And if they show back up, then they get arrested. I think that there needs to be a change in the overview that they say they have now, because that they really don't. I mean, we're moving for legislation that will change some of the way they do things. Some of their investigative procedures of talking to children without documentation of that, of having, like in America, we have a right to face our accuser. In a legal standpoint, I think that those things should be allowed there too, where it's not so easy for someone to just cause trouble without any accountability. If it's valid, if it's true, if it needs to be fixed, okay, let's bring it out there and let's address it everywhere. Not just us, I mean just any people that are taking care of kids or adults. We're enrolling more babies. You know, we're enrolling more students. If you look us up, you'll see various different things, and these are fact-based. I mean, they're things that actually happened. That doesn't mean they're true, but they were actually reported. But people can look all that up as a public record, and they're still making up their own mind and enrolling their kids regardless. I mean, if I'm going down in a ball of flames. I mean, people are gonna know that we fought. People are gonna know that we stood, no matter what the outcome is. Even in this, no matter what the outcome ultimately is. Right now, we're enjoying victory and being able to operate the way we always have and the way we believe God intended us to. But this isn't just about us. What we do here can affect and empower other churches who have been challenged, attacked, and manipulated by the same piece of paper they brought us to stand up and say, wait a minute, no, he didn't have to do it, so we don't either, you know, and people can stand up with confidence knowing that as the church, we don't have to cow down. Nothing personal, it's just that we don't have to comply.